Hello, welcome to this first edition of Talking About EAL, a series of conversations that we'll be having on all kinds of topics and issues related to English as an additional language. My name is Leandro Paladino. I am speaking to you from the city of La Plata in Argentina, and I'll be joined by another one of the deputy editors of the EAL journal, Fiona, and by Christina Richardson, the editor-in-chief of the EAL journal. The journal is published by NALDIC. NALDIC is the National Subject Association for EAL in the UK. And it does a lot of things. There are a number of committees within NALDIC. I belong to the Publications Committee, and Fiona and Chris are also members of the same committee. There's also an Events Committee that organises all kinds of talks and workshops, and the big event in November, the annual conference. This is a special year because it's the 30th anniversary of NALDIC. And the Business Development Committee. And the three committees, well, many of us, the members, belong to a larger executive meeting as well. Hello to everybody joining, if you want to say where you're from as you come in. And let's see if Fiona, are you there? And I can invite you to join us. See if I can send you the invite. There you go. Let's see if we can have Fiona joining. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you perfectly. We did it. We're finally here.
We did it. Yes, that's great.
So why don't you tell us where you are, possibly in colder weather than me here in Argentina?
I can guarantee it's colder weather. I'm in the northeast of England and the top of the North Pennines, and it's extremely windy and cold and wet, unfortunately. So every time I talk to you, Leo, I get jealous of where you are. But hey ho.
I get jealous in July when you are having nice summer weather and I'm in the cold.
You won't. We have about 5 days of really good weather. So.
Let's also say, Fiona, let's mention Rachel Knowles, who is the other deputy editor who can't be here with us today, but she also works with us on the team from Hong Kong, so a truly international group, aren't we? Across 3 continents.
Difficult to find a time when we all can speak at the same time, so
yes, I'm barely waking up when Rach is going to bed, but we manage. We always find a way. So Fiona, why don't you tell us how you first became involved with NALDIC and the journal, and well, your interests in English as an additional language?
Yeah, I mean, I think I first found out about NALDIC probably I can go back to 2006 when I joined a team who worked with EAL learners, and I found out about NALDIC because the team had membership, and you know, the journal was in the staff room, etc., etc. We took it in turns, we shared the journal, and then I became a member myself, and I've been a member, you know, except for some gaps where I forgot to renew for a couple of months, probably since then. And then I finished my master's degree a couple of years ago, and after that I was invited to join Chris and become deputy editor. So I think it's been a couple of years now. It's difficult with COVID, all the days merge, isn't it? But I think it's been
sure. Let's say hello to everybody joining. Hi, everybody. If you'd like to write questions on the chat box or on a special box that there is for questions, feel free to send us any questions that you may have. Just like, let it also be said that in the journal, we're always open for new contributors, teachers and practitioners that might want to get in touch with us and see about writing something on the NALDIC website. you'll find the ways to contact us. Well, Christina, and speaking of Christina, and you've just mentioned the masters, let it also be said that we were both students on that masters together, bilingualism in education at the University of Birmingham, and that Christina was a very generous supervisor for a master's dissertation, wasn't she?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Is Chris joining us?
Yes, yes. Let me see if I can send her the invite. Chris, are you there? I'm sure she'll be. Yes, hello.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon to you. Good morning to me.
Yeah. I'm very pleased to say I'm joining you from sunny London today. So that's actually, yeah, not often I get to say that, but yeah, it's nice.
Sun in London in February. Well, good for you.
I heard you not so good up there, but.
Chris, I was just asking Fiona, and maybe you can tell us yourself how you first got involved with NALDIC and got to be, well, the editor-in-chief, our boss, right?
Yeah, so well, I'm a teacher educator, and I've been involved in language education as a classroom practitioner myself, and then working at King's for about 20 years now, and also working with Constant Long, who is, of course, was one of the founding members of NALDIC. So and then I actually could have joined I was involved in a academic language development program, which was part of the sort of a widening participation initiative to get more students involved in higher education from linguistic minority backgrounds. And so we ran this academic language development program for a number of years with various colleagues from King's. And sort of following that, I got more involved in EAL related work and curriculum development initiatives as well. And then about 5 years ago now, actually, 4 to 5 years ago now, I joined the publications committee and the executive committee of NALDIC, and in 2019 I took over the editorship of the EAL journal.
Right, right. It's interesting. One of the things we often talk about is that many of us working or involved in EAL maybe come from different backgrounds, either a more general language education. I come from TESOL or EFL or ELT myself, and how well NALDIC tries to do its work to contribute to that, to the advancement of training and ideas and support of the specific area of English as an additional language. And from that perspective, we thought that creating this Instagram account and starting to do different things from this place was another way to be in touch with our members and to kind of disseminate our work and our ideas a little bit more. So maybe we can say a little bit what the journal is about and how it fits in with what NALDIC does more broadly.
Yes, so the EAL Journal is a termly publication which brings together activism, research and practice, and so it's partly being a voice and support for the EAL community of practice. Those of you who know me will have read my editorials will probably have I keep coming back to this idea of communities of practice, and I think that's very, very important in terms of what what we're trying to do with the journal. And we have an increasingly strong community of practice, and we're very we now have increasing number of international members who subscribe to the EAL journal through the NALDIC membership, and it's about raising issues. It's about sharing practice, representing teacher voice, and increasingly trying to represent pupil voice. And to share, disseminate research, to connect, research and practice. Yeah, I mean, as you two are very closely involved in the process, I don't know if you'd like to add something to that, either of you.
I think you've covered nearly everything there. I think the benefit of the EAL journal is that it does have it brings in lots of different areas and draws it together. So, for instance, in the last issue where we looked at reading, you know, we had an international thread, we addressed academic debates, we looked at practice, etc., etc. So I think that is one of the benefits that we draw in from lots of different areas to pull together quite a holistic picture of the theme we're addressing.
Absolutely.
Yes, I especially enjoyed this last issue on reading, where the three of us, alongside, apart from working as editors, we also did our own bit of writing and reviewing, and particularly, well, the eternal reading wars, right? The great debate on which method is best and how we can best help pupils with English as an additional language. And it seems to be that you either have to have one method or the other, and the debate goes on, right? Whether it's phonics, and then which kind of phonics, and then whole language across the divide. And it's really been interesting to review that, to write about that, to ask teachers and practitioners. So hopefully anybody watching will be interested to read the issue, to see the many articles that we had related to this.
Yeah, I think what's particularly, you know, was interesting about that issue was the fact that, you know, if those working within the UK will be very much aware of kind of this strong phonics emphasis in teaching reading that has been dominant for a long time, and actually through inviting contributions from practitioners from different contexts. So I think it was really interesting to see different perspectives and different focuses. So yeah, really. I think you're just, you know, representing different voices and so perhaps opening up discussion a little bit more was part of what we're trying to do there.
Yeah.
So this was the current issue, this last issue 16 on reading. And if anybody remembers the list of the issues coming up, we've got decolonizing the curriculum coming up, which reflects the theme of the big conference last November. And any comments you'd like to make about this one coming up, and then the other themes coming up after that one?
Yeah, so you know, I mean, we had a very successful conference on decolonizing the curriculum, and so we're having that as a feature in terms of providing a conference report as our cover feature, but also theme throughout the next edition of the journal. And decolonization is a topic that, you know, is very much on many people's minds, so, you know, particularly interested in looking at it from an EAL perspective. You know, so we're thinking about, you know, how we can rethink, reconstruct sort of dominant sort of hierarchies and the colonial legacy, I suppose, and colonial lens, which has framed so much of the curriculum and processes and research that has taken place, you know, up to date, and thinking about how we can you know, really could have addressed and rethink those. But in terms of EAL, thinking about, you know, challenging sort of language hierarchies, looking at you know, within our multilingual communities, looking at providing more of a voice and better representation of, you know, the backgrounds, the needs, the language of those from minoritized language backgrounds.
Do you think it's difficult maybe to give quick tips on such a complex issue, but, you know, if we've got teachers that are listening to us that might say, well, I can't really do very much about the system, but what can they do, you know, from the classroom? At least what awareness can they have at the back of their minds in terms of what to look at, what to pay attention to, you know, the materials that they select, the materials that they design, the things they say, you know, the positions they take as teachers? Would there be any ideas that maybe we can share as far as decolonizing the curriculum from kind of like from the bottom up, you know, from the classroom in the work that we do with the students day by day?
Yeah, I think it's very much about selection of materials, thinking very carefully, you know, when you're selecting materials, and about kind of representation, not in terms of language, but also kind of just generally sort of ethno-linguistic representation, and ensuring that, you know, that the children can relate to the types of well, basically to the things that are being talked about, represented in the materials. Yeah, Fiona, sorry, do you want to come in there?
Just thinking the starting point for teachers, if I was to give a top tip, would be know your children. Make sure you've done a really good enhanced induction when when the new arrival comes into your school, because when you know the child, then you're actually able to adapt the curriculum. And also a really easy thing to do is to respect their language rights and incorporate their language into the classroom. And that's something that everybody can do. Everybody can give recognition to a learner's language and allow them to use their language in the classroom to support their thinking, create language ambassador programs, which a lot of schools are doing now. So that's a very simple way of looking at a child's language and recognizing that they have rights. So
yeah.
yeah.
Tying this into representation from my corner, what I can say, and even before I joined the work of EAL in particular, coming from TESOL, as I said, or English language teaching from my place in Argentina, for quite some time there's been this critique, to materials, for example, and the sorts of assumptions we make, and and that's also a way to be careful how we talk to the children, right? This idea, well, there's the mum and there's the dad and there's the children, and what kind of racial identity, and so it sounds maybe a bit basic, but I think that's also the starting point, to remember that there's all different kinds of family setups, and questions of race and identity are usually quite delicate, and we need to be careful also how we look at materials, and if we see that our materials are a bit biased in some direction, well, maybe to reconsider the kinds of materials that we use.
Yeah, definitely.
Are we getting a bit lost there? I don't know if we're all following each other.
Nope, I'm with you.
Well, technology.
I'm with you there.
Well, I don't know how much of that went through, but anyway. So let's maybe. What about issues coming up after decolonizing the curriculum? Because our work is to plan ahead, and we usually have quite a lot of themes planned for future issues.
I mean, one of the things we have, we're going to be looking at schools of sanctuary. I'm really excited about that, and we're asking the coordinator of schools of sanctuary in the UK to become a guest editor on that version. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that's Schools of Sanctuary is basically a movement, a grassroots movement, which looks at creating a space of welcome for those who seek sanctuary in schools. And schools can go for an accreditation, which involves looking at what it is to be a refugee, looking at what it is to be seeking protection in a country other than your own, and learning about that as a whole school community, teachers, governors and pupils, and then creating a space of welcome and then sharing their practice. So hopefully that issue will be about sharing practice from Schools of Sanctuary. Chris, sorry, do you want to jump in there? That's the one I'm most about that's coming up.
So yeah, I mean, equally, yeah, really looking forward to that too. So next we have issue on accountability. So looking at sort of the complex, actually, sort of relationships of accountability. So, teacher to pupil, school to teacher, inspection frameworks to schools and to pupils, and obviously pupils to teachers. So a whole sort of interactive sort of network of accountability, and the multi sort of layers of accountability that are at work within schools, and seeing how EAL fits into that, and obviously kind of really trying to kind of raise issues of where sort of accountability is not being not being put into effect, and where kind of these issues are being overlooked, and making sure we're trying to strengthen the provision and the approaches for EAL learners. So that's the next one coming up, and then
it's very much.
I lost you there a bit, Fiona.
I'm just saying that accountability issue is very much going to be about looking at how lens through which accountability is viewed, and the where organisations like Ofsted look and where they're not looking. So we're interested a little bit in where they're not looking, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there are significant gaps, and it sometimes feels that EAL has disappeared in that accountability framework.
Yeah.
Can we just send a quick hello to everybody joining now, including Rachel, our other deputy editor, who's watching us from Hong Kong. I don't know if you wanted to say anything there, Chris, but I also wanted to go back and ask you, Fiona, about your work with refugees and asylum seekers. I know that you have a keen interest in that, and you've done research and you even started a special interest group recently, a SIG, one of the many NALDIC SIGs that there are. If you can tell us a little bit about that, your work, your interests.
Well, the idea of refugee issues and asylum issues has always been something I've been passionate about. And as a primary teacher, I always tried to vein lessons which looked at those areas, which was difficult when the curriculum doesn't exactly address those areas. And as I worked through my career, I ended up working with a lot of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and refugee families, and then that fed into my MEd, where I looked at the linguistic journey of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children in care, and then that progressed to my PhD that I'm doing at the moment, where I'm looking at not just the linguistic journey, but basically how unaccompanied asylum-seeking children find home in care. And yeah, we've just launched a special interest group on refugees and newcomers, and we recently just this meeting which looked at trauma-informed practice, and we're hoping that special interest group, which is open to members, will attract a multi-agency sort of group membership, if you like, rather than just educators. So basically, if you place asylum-seeking children in the centre of this special interest group, what we'd like to see is educators, social workers, youth workers, foster carers. We'd like to see all of those people, special interest groups, so that we can develop a community of practice which has the child at the centre. Is that the sort of thing you're after?
Can I,
Leo?
Yeah.
Can I just sum it up? Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to attend the SIG meeting, and I found it absolutely inspiring. And so looking at trauma-informed pedagogy, and it just kind of made me think about my own increasingly with classrooms where the number of refugee children coming into classrooms is increasing, and thinking about those who might have experienced trauma. And I think it's really, really important that we share ideas around how best to do that, and something that I'd very much like to put on the agenda with my training teachers. I think so in terms of teacher education. It's something that we should.
It's always important, I think, to remember, because we work a lot with language, but and this is also how my previous experience, where maybe learning English or bilingualism might mean something different, might mean something more voluntary, even associated to prestige or elite settings, and how really when we speak of EAL, there are much broader issues at stake, and language becomes an issue much more to do with identity and whether the pupils and their families can become successfully inserted in a society, and it's the day-to-day for them, and how complex all of those issues are, aren't they?
Yeah. I think it was very interesting. Again, one of the things that struck me during the session on trauma-informed pedagogy was, how issues of things that the children have experienced can really impact on on their language development, and so just being aware, for everybody to be aware of the things that might go on, how memory, for example, is impacted. Very
and when you look at behaviours in the classroom, sometimes you can see bad behaviour, but actually if you put the lens, the trauma-informed lens, and you look at that behaviour, actually it becomes very understandable. Fitness, memory, not engaging, that sort of thing. We also talked about strategies for supporting learners beyond that, and to develop a growth, a post-traumatic growth, and that was quite interesting, to look at the necessary, the prerequisites for that. So yeah, it was an interesting SIG, and I hope we have more sort of relevant topics like that to discuss about, related to
I'm really looking for the next one.
Let's hope that we can have other conversations, maybe with members from the special interest groups or from the SIG, from the RIGs, in fact, so that we can broaden this discussion. Now, coming back to the journal, well, it's published 3 times a year, isn't it? And then once a year, we have a special pamphlet that we produce on a variety of themes. Like, for example, the last one was analyzing the E in EAL, what English means for practitioners in different context. Then there was also a special needs pamphlet that was put together. I know, Chris, you were very greatly involved in that pamphlet for pupils with special needs. There was also one for the challenges of the EAL coordinator, right? Particularly the first 100 days, I think was the name, how a person might be new to the role of working as an EAL coordinator within a school, and the challenges involved in that. What can we say about the pamphlets and those themes that we've already covered, others that might be coming up soon?
Yes, so I think the introduction of the first pamphlet with the 100 first days as EAL coordinator, I mean, I think that was a real gem, and the feedback we've got on it has been that practitioners have really sort of valued this pamphlet in just bringing together kind of for both primary and secondary, kind of what are the first steps, and really providing basically some kind of structuring and or helping to guide EAL coordinators in those, because often sort of that role perhaps hasn't got a clearly sort of defined necessarily kind of remit, or perhaps is not as clearly structured, and really just helping the coordinators to find out where they're going, what they need to do in their first terms in role. So moving on to the second one, which we did, which was again kind of reflecting practitioner and sort of research interest in identifying special educational needs in EAL learners with special educational needs who are EAL. This again was following on from a conference that we had, but and it was Katie Howard, Paul Nankaro, and Katie Howard has a specialism looking at bilingualism or autism, bilingualism and autism, and so we were kind of framing it around kind of my particular area of interest is dyslexia and language learning, and essentially able to bring some sort of view of cross-linguistic perspectives on language. And we were also looking at autism, and so it's to some extent it's like laying the ground for what is SEND in the context of the UK mainly, and looking at sort of the frameworks, the code of practice, but then looking at kind of strategies that can be used to support learners who are EAL but also have special educational needs and disabilities. And then, so more recently, we looked at what is the E in EAL, and I think this was very interesting because it brought together different perspectives on EAL and what is the E in EAL, and we had contributions from Leo in Argentina, but also we had contributions from Holland and also from the UK, and not only kind of in primary and secondary education, so we also from ESOL as well, so we were able to basically look at really across the breadth of different contexts and to see what it meant in those different contexts. We also had wanted to mention context was a United World College in Holland as well. So it's a breadth of context, and I think it's providing different insights has been really valuable. Oh, and thinking about what we're going on towards, we will have, we're going to have a pamphlet which is going to be related to the next issue on accountability, which will be around inspection frameworks and kind of what to see, what do you think is important for basically improving accountability for EAL children. And after that, well, there's certainly so many things that we'd like to address.
We'll see.
And
we'll see.
and we'd be very interested to hear, suggestions from those listening for something they would like to see a pamphlet about. And we're always open to hearing ideas and think what people would like to have featured.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say before, maybe inviting final comments from you to, begin to draw this conversation to a close, to once again say that anybody that wants to contribute, to write for us, well, they can contact Chris. On the NALDIC website, you'll find our details if you want to get in touch and send an idea, a title, a short abstract, and we'll be happy to consider contributions from any part of the world. One of the things that we said we might do, we've got our vice chair, Hamish Chalmers, who did quite an extensive project from which he arrived at the top 25 questions to match research and practice. What kinds of research questions would teachers like addressed? And in the last issue, he brought that list down to 10 questions, the top 10 questions for EAL. Would you like to mention maybe if you find any of those questions especially interesting, or else any other final comment that you'd like to make before we say goodbye?
And I don't know whether you can hear me because you're breaking up. If I was to, it would be contribute, write for the blog, write for the journal. And lots of people from outside of the UK here. There is a special in Jules. Yeah, get involved and let's learn from each other.
Okay, vulnerability, someone is suggesting. That's interesting. Can you hear us, Chris? I don't know if we're breaking up or...
Breaking up a little bit. I can't hear people properly. Yeah.
Chris, if you're there and you would like to make a final comment.
We might have to go to you, Leo, your final comment, and we'll go back to Chris.
Right. Yes, Chris, are you there? Well, just to say thanks to everyone watching. Sorry if we couldn't read some of the questions or comments that you were putting forward. This was the first.
I'm here now. Sorry, I
Instagram Live. Yeah,
I lost.
Oh, we've lost you again. No, we can't hear you, Chris.
We can't hear you, but I think we've said quite a lot about the journal and about the NALDIC, and the idea, well, these first sessions will be meet the team sessions for us to meet NALDIC and who we are and what we do. And by meeting us, apart from meeting us individually, also to start discussing together various issues and dilemmas and controversies related to English as an additional language. So stay tuned for more conversations like this. Thanks, everyone. I recognize some of the names here from Argentina. I know that some of you are in the UK, other parts of the world. Thank you very much, and talk to you during the week, right? Fiona, Chris, as we begin to wrap up the next issue, issue 17 of the journal?